study to be the podcast.
We're gonna have to put a sign.
Yeah, we
We
just
just
did
did
that
that
time
time
today, it's like 20 seconds.
Should I lock it, leave it locked?
Would you tell them that?
We can unlock it because people, new people, because we don't. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
The city council has returned to open session at 6:38 PM. Moving on to item D, ordinance 2026-1207. Discussion of ordinance 2026-1207, an ordinance of the city of Mountain, Washington, adopting a mayoral stipend, establishing the duration of the mayoral stipend, and establishing an effective date. Does council have any questions? Yeah.
We don't want to adopt the site and then adopt to the new city and take their permit until it doesn't stand again.
Okay.
I couldn't hear the whole question, council member, but I have some, I've kind of have some history here to kind of help why this is the way it is. And just kind of explain where the actual stipend is, because for those council members who stayed on from last year, you will know that at the very end of this year, last year, an ordinance was set forth on your last agenda trying to move the stipend back from $1,700 to $700, which is what it was back in 2023, which was tabled. Staff brought to my attention that ordinance from 2023 that has language in there that states that the stipend would move to $1,700 during the term of Mayor Rulas, and at that point, and then would be terminated at the end of her term. Based off of both Julie and I's conclusion, and we actually believe that this might have been a drafting error this way, it actually renders the mayoral stipend to be zero. It eliminates the stipend at the end of her term. So as of today, there is no mayoral stipend. Recognizing that, we quickly drafted the ordinance that's in front of you to reestablish the stipend and specifically to push it to $1,700, which of course, as we all know, was the previous stipend that also, I know just based off of the previous conversations from the last council, that was their desire in order to have kind of a conversation with now Mayor Gonzalez about what the stipend should be, with language in there that essentially states that the stipend shall remain the same until it is changed by further action of this council. So it doesn't go away at the end of Mayor Gonzalez's term like the previous one did with Mayor Rulas. In order to reestablish a mayoral stipend at all, at any number, council has to take some sort of action to bring that forward. My recommendation to you all folks is to do that with this ordinance. You can have that obviously we'll answer questions. There's an open question about the number, but and especially to try to get this resolved this month. As long as a mayoral stipend is resolved this month, the mayor will receive a stipend for the month, because I know those things, the stipends usually don't go out until the end of the month. So that's all my background information. With all of that, I am open to questions.
If we do this, pass this ordinance, we won't have to change it every 4 years and do a new one if it stays the same as it is.
It will remain in effect until you take further action. So if that further action happens in 10 years' time, or 2 years' time, 6 years, 4 years. So you will not, it does not automatically expire in 4 years like the previous one did.
I think we can go back to what it used to be at 700.
Sorry.
I'd like to see it at least at adoption. That's the study session.
Drew, my question is, let's see in 4 years, for some unfortunate reason, a new mayor comes into play. Can they change that when, if they want, or once it's an ordinance, is it gonna stay like that?
The council sets the mayoral compensation. So if, let's assume for a moment that in 4 years' time, a new mayor came in who wanted to change how much they were paid. In order to make that change, they would have to bring a similar ordinance like this one to that council for consideration. They couldn't just unilaterally or administratively change it without some sort of action from the council.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item E, the discussion of the 2026 budget and master fee schedule. Discussion of 2026 budget and master fee schedule. Any questions, discussion?
So what went up on it, because it's not in red, nothing went up?
Councilmember Olivares wanted to bring this, this topic up for discussion today.
Oh.
Yes. What? No, the reason I wanted to talk about this was because there's a lot of discrepancies in here that, to me, they don't add up. And this is what I was talking about. I was talking about this stuff. This stuff right here. The reason I'm bringing it up is because some of these numbers just don't add up to me. You know, on the spread out right here, when you guys say hours occur, what do you mean by that? Are people accruing hours per pay period?
For-
Is there a limit, or is
for
it like
payroll?
5 hours in pay period? 8 hours in pay period, 10 hours in pay period,
With regards to what?
to employees?
Tell them what. page you're
Okay,
on.
here's, I'm on page
Sure, that
22 of the paycheck.
On payroll is what?
I think that means
Hours that you can.
They're
that you
paid.
accrue.
You can say.
That they've
you
used.
paid her.
Yes. Yes, but you earn them every
Yeah.
pay period.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, here's a good example. There's a person on here, I don't wanna name names, but there's a person on here that. His regular hours were 100 hours in a 2-week period. His overtime hours were 2. His current hours were 1. 2 weeks later. His regular hours were 30.25. His overtime hours were 5.50. And his accrued hours were 64. So how can a person accrue 64 hours?
They
in
weren't
2 weeks?
accrual hour, they were hours used. So what you're looking at are the hours that were used in that pay period.
Okay, well, right here it says accrued hours.
Yeah, they were, the accrual hours are vacation, sick, personal, all of those fall into that category. What?
See the last
Holiday.
where you-
All of the, all the holiday, sick, vacation, personal leave, all falls under the accrual hours.
Okay, so you're telling me that he was cashed out at the end of the year?
He used them already.
He used
He was
them.
cashed out at the end of the year.
yeah.
No,
So
he
you
used
add
them.
64, 32, and 5, that makes 95.
There should have been 96 total hours for this pay period.
Here's 100 here, here's 96 here. Well, more than 100 here then.
But I think this needs to be broken down in a little bit towards. It's more self-explanatory than it is right here, because the way it is right here is pretty confusing, I thought. But the way I looked at it. I don't know if anybody else looked at it the way I did, but this is the way I looked at it. Because how can this person accrue 64 hours in a 2-week period? There's no, it doesn't tell you. It doesn't.
He didn't
explain you.
accrue them in that 2-week period. He used them in that 2-week
But that's
period.
what I'm saying. to me, the word accrue means that he
That's how the report.
got those hours in a 2-week period. That's what it means to me.
Okay, so
So-
that's the program that we use, Visions. I don't make any changes to that. I pulled the report right out of the Visions program. And this is the program that multiple cities throughout the state use. I could put in a request for them to change the report to show, but I mean, that will be on Visions to
Is
make
gonna
that
be
change.
additional cost?
I don't know.
Well, we just need to know accrued hours doesn't mean they accrued and that means they use those hours. In the case.
Right.
Or put in another column to where it separates what they use from what they got.
So you want to see that they're what they've accrued.
What they accrued and another column of
Oh,
what they
I
used.
can't, on this paycheck activity report, I can't make changes to it.
No, not on this one, for the future.
But that's what.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Is there any way of putting in another column without additional costs?
He's gonna ask you that.
I will look into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, that's good.
So it wasn't necessarily the rate schedule then that you wanted to see. You have to see. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Questions on the master fee?
We haven't made any changes. We'll bring that to you. Any proposed changes will be brought to you to approve or not approve, but I have started calling other cities around the area to see where they're at, and we've got to make up costs somewhere, so, and I don't know when the last time was we changed any of those costs, but one in particular that I know is the firework permit. In Sunnyside, it's $50.
It used to be 25 here and then they went back down to 15.
If you buy it in June, it's 15, but in July, when you get closer to the 4th, it goes back up to 25. But I think we should just have it the same cost, because they're able to use it for New Year's Day as well, or so. Just some different things, but I just wanted to just advise you guys that we are looking into it, and I'm not saying we match Sunnyside because we're nowhere near Sunnyside, but we may need to look at increasing
25?
rates. They do now, yeah.
Where does this money go to? Does it go to the general fund, like, let's say, for yard sales, for fireworks? Any additional miscellaneous, anything like that?
It goes to the
It
general
goes to
fund.
the general fund?
Mhm.
I have a question for you. Is there a reason why the meeting's locked?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So we'll be moving on to item F, the approval of amendment number 10 to the professional engineering services contract with Ray and Osborne Inc.
Union Council. This is a follow-up to an item that we discussed months ago, talking about the wells and the issues trying to find a well that would produce the water you needed to have both the quantity and quality of water. Just as a little bit of backstory, the test well that was drilled north of the elementary school had plenty of water, for what we were looking for, the range of water we were expecting. For the better case outcome, but the water quality was very poor and would, based on the initial sampling, would require 2 types of treatment. And so at that point, you're looking at not just the cost of a pump from the well house, you're also looking at 2 treatment systems. Maybe that's still worth it, but while the quantity of water wasn't, it was 200 to 300 GPM. While that's good water, you have to do a 2 treatment system, and it would be that starts to get pretty expensive. And so the thought was before you headed down that path, especially because you don't have the money that you need for that, take a step back, make sure that that's still a path that you want to take. And so, CDBG, the funder for the well drilling is a grant, they agreed to pay for that, step back, make picture look on the grant. They're trying to get you guys, they know this project isn't on the way you would hope, but they're trying to get you to a point where you could move forward with something. And so the thought there was to do a, discuss this. Go back out to 30,000 foot level of feasibility of all the options. Previously, the shallow aquifer wells was the next option for the city, the best option for the city to get short. Based on the wells that drilled, the water quality may not be the case anymore. And so the thought was, well, you have this grant now, do that 30,000 foot look at it. Then once you decide, then you can move forward with this or something else, either way you're gonna get more funding and funders will want to see more funding. And so this is that feasibility to say, okay, let's look at all the options. Okay. This big picture, we look at, let's see what's all going, so with the shallower off the well. Pipeline can adjacent city of high water, which. But like you should look, you gotta look at all these options with the costs and make sure, you know, that this path you started on is still the right path. And the good news is that the grant funder was gracious to allow kind of amend, we give you more time to finish it. This funding did expire at the end, and we were in January, so. July, there's been more chance to use it. This facility. So, the other piece is that you do have money, budget contractor for another test well. So those are making things about spring. There's municipal well wastewater treatment plant. This will at least tell you what the water's like, so this part that would inform the feasibility of, should we consider that? If the water there only requires one type of treatment instead of two, that's still cheaper. You'll multiple shallow wells there and treat all at once. These were all questions that, you know, we can't just make on the fly and decide on this, and so the thought was this still work. Okay, take a step back, just look at all the options, big picture feasibility, what would it take for each option? Water rights in terms of DOH approvals that would be granted, and estimated costs, so that then you can decide, like, okay, here are all the options again. You still want to stay with this option, or we want to go with it? So that's the scope of work. Also included in there is the hydrogeological stuff. They do water rights and hydrogeo, so they're looking at the water rights and hydrogeo application to the options. But for the options you don't already have water rights for, how would you work? Would you need more water rights changes? What would that look like? And so the goal is then you'll have this, and we'll start working on it with the additional test well drill, and bring it back into the event, and you will have here are all of the big picture options. So some of them may be a little wave your hands in the air, big picture, like that sounds like a crazy option, but like, okay, let's look at all the options and what costs. Based on that, that would be a document then, and you take long to watch. We evaluated this is our point of. So that's the backstory. We talked about it a couple minutes ago when you guys asked us to put this in together. But that was happy if you guys have any questions or so.
Yeah. So shallow wells, shallow aquifers, for short term, for the most part,
Short term.
as far as. You know, non-water.
Well, because they're shallow, you can only draw the well down to the bottom. Right, so that's why 200 to 300 GPM was the best that we thought much to go for, because it's only about 140 from town, maybe a little deeper to the north, the bedrock. You can only drill to that depth, and you can pull the water level down so far. In terms of the reliability of the water, that's like the water that's the same water that's in the river, that's rain falling in, and so it's perhaps more reliable than a salt aquifer that recharges a lot slower. But the shallower water is being recharged more actively from the surface. The deep salt well aquifers, which is all three of the city's wells are in, they, you know, throughout the eastern Washington, they're seeing this long-term declines water level. Like, they may be slow, sometimes like a foot a year, which doesn't sound like much, for over 50 years, you're seeing where that goes off, where's the understanding, right? I acknowledge this, because this comes with off, which should be included, but we're not just able to get all the way down back deep in the target. Or there's no way to recharge it, or it slows these giant lakes of water that goes over. And so the idea for the city was, you have this deep salt well off the first. City bought water rights for the shallow aquifer. Let's diversify our portfolio and have straws in different buckets of water, so we're not over one aquifer. The downside of that is, we can only get 200 communities again for the wells. And also a lot of volumes. So for this test well, there were nitrates in excess of the state limit, as well as manganese, tobacco, arsenic was those, iron was, they were all high. And you can treat arsenic, iron, and manganese with one treatment system, but nitrates were another treatment system. So that's what the city will be. So we proceed with the well had true treatment systems. The original plan was to fill these wells through the city's existing wells, so that that water could be blended. Knew that nitrates might be an issue. There's high nitrates and manganese. But if you put it next to one of the city's other wells that are deep salt, you have other water quality constituents of concern in those wells, but you don't have nitrates. Blend it together, then the water in the city gets full of it. That well that was drilled and the follow-up test well built, there was not enough water involved, from 20 feet down and poor quality. And so the ideal situation was to put that next to existing wells and blend the nitrates. Mix the water so it can go over. That didn't work, the last one was test wells. Like, well, let's, we at least know, we have the grant to find out, let's drill these test wells and find out what else we have. But drilling a well there, north side of town, there's no way to easily blend it with the water from the south side of town without building the dedicated pipeline over the south.
The reason I'm
Maybe that's cheaper than treatment, but that's what we did, ask the question. Yeah, sorry, that's what Travis, I was trying to do some. Okay,
The reason I'm asking is because with all this new infrastructure that's gonna be going on, do you think a shallow well would be beneficial than a deeper well?
Well, it could be, right, because sometimes those deep salt well aquifers are pretty flowing, so they're the ones keeping the image. And so that was why, there are cities that are increasingly trying to get into a shallow aquifer, that are moved, their portfolio of wells, Moses Lake is actively trying to move into shallow wells from deep wells. Because of concerns in that aquifer, deep salt aquifer they're in, declining water levels. So if you could find water that didn't require two types of treatment or didn't require any treatment besides chlorination, absolutely, nice to have straws in different buckets of water. Some shallow, some deeper, because that gives you more resiliency. The problem is, so far we haven't found something that's obviously cost effective, and so that's the point of this, is like, let's look at all the costs again and make sure that makes sense. Did that answer the question?
Yes,
Simon?
yes.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, how do you feel about ice pigging?
It's a treatment for clean water lines. It's used in various places when they want to clean accumulated sediment out of lines. From what we've seen in the past, the city has iron manganese in their existing wells, naturally occurring. When it interacts with chlorine, which is actually goes chlorine in your water, it can cause precipitation of some of that material. And so, we've cut the water main job, or the best we've done several years ago. Some of the water mains have a coating on the inside that's this precipitating manganese that could potentially be cleaned out of the pipes of ice. For a project for the city would have to probably bid that for contractors. It would be, depending on how much you wanted to do, you would probably have to put it out for public bid. The concern would be you might clean the material that's precipitated, that's become solid on the pipes. You might clean that out, but if you still have more iron and manganese coming in, it will just re-precipitate on the pipes.
Over time,
Yeah.
over time.
And so ideally, in the perfect world where money grows on trees, you would install a treatment system that would remove that iron manganese from the water in the wells before it enters the system, and also clean the pipes out, if you could.
Do you
And
think,
so,
do you
and
think,
that's the pilot study the city's working on, is a step toward that treatment system.
do you think that would be a step that the city could take and afford financially, just to see what happens?
It's certainly something the city could consider, and we're happy to look into it on the city's behalf and put a cost estimate together.
Okay,
Nothing is cheap.
yeah,
But, if that was something.
but this would probably be the cheapest way to go for now,
I mean,
more or less.
That's right.
cheapest, it would depend on what your desired outcome is, right?
Yeah.
You know, if that material is fairly stable in the pipes,
Mhm.
then it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't hurt you, right? As long as it's staying solid in the pipes, you know, it's staying where it is. It'd be nice to clean it out, but it's not necessarily doing it, you know, it's not like, you know, many cities with material precipitated in the pipes. Now, if it starts to come back into solution, then that starts to cause some water quality issues. And there's some theory that may have caused, you know, fluctuation with chlorination may have caused some of the water quality issues a couple months ago. Because of that material, and that's just a theory. It's
Okay, so which one would you recommend if it came down to two projects? Either ice pigging or liquid hydrogen, which one would you prefer
with hydrogen. In
to
what
clean up the
context?
well, to clean up the pumps and the screens and stuff?
I would. Well, rehabilitation is a good idea.
Mhm.
It's a good idea that we have wells. That's one form of rehabilitation. There are a bunch of others, and so I wouldn't pick that out necessarily as the only way to rehab the wells. At that point, if the city wanted to do well rehab, which, you know, it's good to rehab the well on a regular, every 15 years. Their specialty contractors that do that, and look at the hydrogeologists, look at the bacteria and sort of. You know, samples in your well, and from that they can say, okay, you have this issue, let's do this type of rehab or video, and then you're having incrustation on the screen, so we're gonna brush it. And have a variety of rehab methods that can tailor to the type of well. So I would speak specifically to that type of rehabilitation because the wells could all individually need some different,
Yeah.
you know, it's chemical, there's chemical treatment where you're putting stuff down, there's where you're brushing it or surging it. We did some rehab on the for a few years ago. Generally, you know, certainly supportive of well rehab in that over time the wells can become clogged, stuff can grow there, so they clean it and it kind of restores its capacity. So, you know, certainly, and that was in the city's water plan to do, I believe, to do regular, you know, every 15 years, to at least check in and think about well rehab.
Okay, and by doing either one or the other, wouldn't the volume come up as far as gallons per minute?
You might get some volume recovery from the well.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, you've got a straw down in the aquifer and the water is coming in, and so the harder it is for the water to get in the well over time, you'll see a reduction in capacity. And so cities with, you know, large cities with many wells have done studies where, you know, they'll track over time and fast the well comes down. If you gotta get too far down, you can't just rehab it back to the starting point. If you rehab it on regular intervals, you can keep it restored. Now, I'm not sure you would see it as, wow, it was 400 today and 500 tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you would see, you know, it's just part of maintenance, like anything else you maintain. You know, what regular well rehab is a good idea, and 99% sure that was a project we put in the city water system plans, if it's a part of maintaining, long-term maintaining the holes out in the.
Do you have any idea why well 6 is shut down?
My understanding is based on the water sampling that was done as part of the water treatment options analysis that we did for the city. That's the first piece of moving towards treatment. You know, we looked at sampling at each well, the college paid for some additional sampling. And you know, we got this naturally occurring iron and manganese and hydrogen sulfide in the water, right? That's naturally occurring. But of the 3 wells, well 6 was the larger. And so it's the smallest amount of water with the worst water quality. So my understanding is twofold why the city has kind of put it as a less used well. One is because of that, you know, well, this is by far the worst water quality, we're having complaints about water quality, so let's put that as the backup well, so that we're not gonna run that well unless we have to. The other piece is that 2 or 3 years ago, there was an issue with one of the electrical equipment there. And the city, it was one of those, sometimes it's like, you know, flip the switch, everything's fine, it'll alarm again if it's an issue. It was the type of alarm that the electrical engineer said, you should have that checked out before you run it very much. And so working with city staff, we came to quote, brought actually the council approved it. There were some issues with getting payment account set up. And as far as I know, that was never done. And so that's the other reason city staff, the operations staff left offline is because they still need to have that electrical equipment checked out. I've communicated that with the new water operator. I've communicated that, he's aware of it. I sent him the quote so he can reach out and potentially have them check out that electric equipment. As my understanding is he wanted to restore that well to more active operation.
Okay.
But those are the 2 reasons, that electric equipment and the concerns about, well, we're having concerns about water quality. Of all the wells, this one is the one that has, you know, city was in compliance with DOH requirements, but there are some things that still could cause objectionable aesthetics in the water. That might still be in compliance with DOH requirements, and that well is the worst, and so wanted to take that, to make that the least used well to try to, reduce complaints and improve the aesthetic qualities of the water.
Okay, well, hopefully that eats into it and something gets done about that in the near future, hopefully.
Yeah, and I provided him with the info, and, be happy to assist with that.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
Appreciate
that, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
What's causing the poor water quality now and minimizing water levels? At the new site that we're talking about at the very beginning.
I'm sorry.
You said there was poor water quality?
In the
Yeah.
test well that was
Yes.
drilled. So that's just
nitrates?
naturally, it was nitrates, arsenic, manganese, and iron. Not all of it was above the limit, some of it was above the limit, some of it was close. Where you wouldn't wanna assume it could flow above the limit.
And what's contributing to the flowing water table there?
So at that location, the test well, the water production seemed great. We were really excited based on the amount of water that wasn't. It was plenty of water in that well. Best case scenario, what we expect for this sort of shallow aquifer well. Water quantity wasn't a concern, that was the quality of it. The test well and the test well on south side of town were the ones that were concerning.
Arsenic and other these like
I mean,
the land use around that. area.
well, it's either naturally or due to the geophysical, so. Yes,
What's the legal?
so it's the parcel north of the LMC symbol. Right now, it's. Yeah, so by naturally occurring, when I say the default aquifers, naturally occurring with deep waters, theoretically, it's very little connection with groundwater, so it's not, there's. But this is shallow, so it could be.
Sorry for the interruption. Questions, should be directed to council, not to. Sorry.
So you guys can ask it. Because my next question would be, do they ever seek federal appropriations for these types of projects?
You guys ever see,
I didn't answer, sorry, I don't want to, I don't mean to, yeah. I mean, certainly the federal government has looked, I know there've been a lot of studies of the groundwater quality in the Lower Valley, and that's where they've seen nitrates in a lot of wells. Likely there's a connection to ag, to, animal waste, to a variety of things. And so.
Have you ever sought federal funding for these types of water projects? Because Coppenish gets, just got $2 million for new roads. With federal appropriations, Sunnyside could possibly be getting some notice pretty soon about federal appropriations for a well.
Let me answer it. So I know you're in charge of getting the blue app and stuff like that, or.
We assist the city with funding applications, yeah, so we've done federal appropriation requests on behalf of our clients. We did a few. Trying to remember, we're certainly happy to. Ultimately, to be clear here, we assist for free to help cities with funding applications. If there's a funding application you're interested in, you can send it to us and say what you're interested in, we're happy to help with it. Occasionally programs come up, a lot of times state programs come up and say, hey, there's a good program, we're interested in. We did a couple of legislative appropriations, a couple of legislation requests. I don't remember, I feel like we did a congressional appropriation request for the city at some point, happy to look at it again, when that comes around, if that's something you guys want to do.
Do you find them, do we get it to you, or do we find them and ask?
Some of both.
Excuse me.
They're regular grants.
Just kind of what she was mentioning. I actually, it's funny that it was brought up, but I did have a meeting with the chief of police in Toppenish. Kind of asking him how they attained this funding. And I actually had a meeting with, I believe it's Goldman, Honeywell. Can't remember their government lobbyists. And they help communities attain this type of financing for these projects. Obviously, they cost money, but it's the one that I spoke to the mayor that I'd like to have another meeting with the mayor and myself. And then if she feels that it's worth presenting to all of council, then they'd be willing to present what they're able to do for us. And as far as costs and stuff too, they'll let you guys know that too. So that was,
They have two windows open right now in the House for the House and Senate, and that is February 28th and March 31st. Appropriations Committees are meeting on request. And those are the windows that are closing, February 28th and March 31st.
Those, to answer the question.
What question?
Good, yeah, I just.
Yes.
Did the answer?
Yes,
the answer
yes,
question?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're, I'm happy, to be clear, you know, without obvious engineering, so if the city wants to help with funding applications, generally for infrastructure, and we do those for free on that one. But it's not like we're a lobbyist.
Okay,
Just trying to help fund.
thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the city council will now go into another executive session, or an executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 to discuss potential litigation to which the city is a party, or where public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the city. The executive session will last 20 minutes. And no action will be taken during the executive session. We expect to return to open session at approximately 7:34.
Mm.